Let me start with something that might sound a little unusual. You don't need a breakthrough to feel better. I know in today's world, we're often sold this idea that change has to be dramatic, that to heal, to grow, to feel like yourself again, you need a brand new morning routine, a full reset, a bold transformation, something big, something that looks good in a reel or a retreat brochure. But what if that's not true? What if the real turning point isn't a moment of triumph, but a moment of softness? A breath, a pause, a shift so small that no one sees it but you, and yet that's where your peace begins. We live in a time where self-care has become a production. Meditate, journal, go to the gym, breathe deeply, manifest, grind, achieve. And yes, these practices can be beautiful and meaningful. But let's be honest. When your nervous system is overwhelmed, when your thoughts are scattered and your heart is heavy, those things can feel like more pressure. Another thing to do, another thing to get right. But healing doesn't always need effort. Sometimes, what you really need is a return, not to perfection, but to something simpler, something quieter, a moment that whispers, "I'm still here." Let's talk about presence. It doesn't require planning. You don't need to buy anything, schedule anything, or follow a step-by-step system. You don't need a yoga mat, a guided meditation, or a cold plunge. You don't even need a journal. You just need to come back to your breath, to your body, to a single moment of intentional awareness. And that's what this series is about. Not the big wins, not the transformations, but the tiny, invisible recalibrations that create actual change. Things you can do in 5 seconds, with no tools, no rituals, no preparation. Habits that don't require discipline, just the willingness to notice. Because your nervous system doesn't need more input. It needs space. Your emotions don't need fixing. They need listening. Your inner world doesn't need to be optimized. It needs to be honored. The ancient Stoics understood this deeply, perhaps more than we give them credit for. To them, philosophy wasn't a theory to debate. It was a way to live, a way to return, a practice of meeting reality with grace, humility, and clarity. And sometimes, clarity comes not from doing more, but from doing less with more intention. So if you're here because your mind has been loud, if you've been feeling emotionally fatigued, mentally foggy, disconnected from yourself, this is your invitation to soften, to turn inward without judgment, to rediscover the part of you that doesn't need to strive. It only needs to remember. In this video, and the ones that follow, I'll guide you through 10 gentle daily practices that don't require structure or perfection. Just presence. They're not productivity hacks. They're not aesthetic routines. They're moments. Sacred, simple human moments that whisper, "You're safe now." You don't have to brace anymore. You don't have to become someone new. You just have to return to who you already are. And every time you practice one of these moments, you're building emotional steadiness. Not by force, but by rhythm. So if you're ready, let's begin. Not with a breakthrough, but with something much smaller and infinitely more powerful. A breath, a pause, a return. Let me ask you something simple, but important. How are you, really? Not the "I'm fine," not the "I'm busy but good," not the quick response we toss around out of habit. But how are you inside? Take a breath, and just for a moment, see what surfaces. We live in a culture that teaches us to perform the moment we wake up. Your alarm rings, and before you've even taken your first conscious breath, your mind is already online, checking texts, scrolling headlines, reviewing your to-do list, or preparing to meet everyone's expectations. We wake up to the world, not to ourselves. And in that rush, we forget to check in. We bypass the truth of our emotional state, skipping over what we actually feel, because there's so much to do. But here's the cost. When you abandon yourself in the first hour of the day, you end up spending the rest of it out of alignment. Your decisions, your reactions, your conversations, they're driven not by clarity, but by unseen tension. So what if you change that? What if your day didn't start with tasks or technology, but with a quiet question? How am I really? It sounds small, but it's not. That one question, asked first thing in the morning, is a moment of emotional honesty. It's not about fixing. It's not about motivating yourself. It's about meeting yourself, just as you are. Imagine this. You wake up, and instead of reaching for your phone, you sit up slowly on the edge of your bed. You place your feet on the floor. You take one slow, grounding breath, and then quietly, you ask, how am I? You might notice that you're already anxious. Maybe your body is still carrying yesterday's stress, or maybe you feel hopeful. Maybe you feel nothing at all, numb, disconnected. All of that is okay. You're not here to analyze or justify it. You're simply here to notice. Here's why this matters. Your nervous system doesn't just respond to external chaos. It listens to you. It listens to how often you check in versus how often you check out. When you acknowledge your internal state first thing in the morning, you're saying to yourself, I see you. You're allowed to exist here. And that act of seeing, without judgment, is regulating. It tells your body, you're safe, we're listening. And what we listen to softens. This small ritual, practiced daily, is more powerful than any motivational quote or morning routine hack. Because it creates emotional alignment. When you begin your day by tuning into yourself, you move through life differently. You make different choices. You speak more gently. You respond instead of react. You live from presence instead of performance. This isn't a new idea. The Stoics, yes, the ancient philosophers often misunderstood as cold or detached, actually valued this practice deeply. Seneca wrote that each evening he would reflect on his day. But just as important as evening reflection is morning recognition. Marcus Aurelius, in his journal, would write not to impress others, but to remind himself of who he was, how he felt, and how he wanted to live. They didn't wait for a crisis to become self-aware. They trained for it. Daily. So, how do you begin? Step 1. Don't complicate it. No app, no tracking, no rules. Just sit, breathe, ask, how am I really? That's enough. You can go deeper if you want. You can ask a follow-up question. What do I need this morning? Maybe it's stillness. Maybe it's movement. Maybe you need to cancel something. Maybe you need to drink a glass of water and go for a walk. Or maybe you just need to not abandon yourself. Here's what you'll start to notice over time. You stop betraying your needs so easily. You stop ignoring the quiet signals your body's been sending. You stop feeling like a stranger to your own emotions. Because you've built a habit of coming home to yourself. First, before the rest of the world enters. And when you build your day from the inside out, everything changes. You're not chasing peace. You're creating it. From the very first moment of the day. Let's be clear. This is not about making your mornings heavy or intense. It's not about dwelling or spiraling. Some mornings your answer might be, I'm good. I feel light today. Beautiful. Celebrate that. Let that feeling anchor you. Other mornings you'll find emotions that surprise you. Tiredness that wasn't physical. Grief that didn't have a name. Or a tiny flicker of hope that's been waiting to be seen. Whatever it is, let it be enough. This is what emotional resilience looks like. Not perfection, not control, but consistent honesty. And from that honesty, you create space for clarity, for peace, for better choices. Not because you pushed yourself harder, but because you remembered to check in. Let's wrap this with something practical. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, resist the urge to scroll or jump out of bed. Instead, sit up, feel your body, take a breath. Ask, how am I really? If it feels natural, follow with, What do I need this morning? That's it. No need to act on it right away. No need to write it down. Just witness yourself. Final thought. In a world that constantly asks for your output, give your inward life 5 seconds. Because that version of you, the one who listens before reacting, who notices before performing, that version is where healing begins. So tomorrow, before the noise enters, meet yourself first. And let that one honest moment guide the rest of your day. There's a kind of tired that has nothing to do with sleep. It's the tiredness of living the same day over and over, of moving through your world without ever really feeling it. Not because you don't want to, but because your body and mind have become trapped in autopilot. But here's the quiet truth. You don't need to escape your life to feel different. You just need to interrupt it, gently, deliberately, with awareness. So today, I want to share 4 simple habits that help you break the trance. Not by thinking more, but by feeling more. In your body, in your breath, and in how you move through space. Let's begin. Habit 2. Shift your physical perspective. When was the last time you looked at your life from a different angle? No, not metaphorically, literally. Sat somewhere new, lay down on the floor, stood on your toes and looked out a different window. It sounds too small to matter, but it matters. Because your brain is wired to respond to novelty, even tiny novelty. And when you change your physical perspective, even just a few inches, your mind follows. It wakes up. It gets curious. It stops assuming it knows everything about this moment. And in that pause, that alertness, you create space for something new to emerge, a new thought, a new feeling, a new insight. So try this today. Move to a different chair. Sit on the floor with your back to the wall. Look up at the ceiling you always ignore. Drink your coffee facing the opposite direction. Then ask, if I saw this moment differently, what else might change? You don't need an answer. Just the question will shift something inside. Habit 3, dress with intention, not habit. We all get dressed every day. But how often do you choose your clothes based on how you want to feel, not just how you want to look? Color holds energy. And whether or not you believe in color psychology, your nervous system absolutely does. Red might make you feel bold. Blue, steady. Yellow, hopeful. Black, focused. Green, grounded. White, open. What if, instead of reaching for the same default outfit, you paused and asked, what energy do I want to carry into the day? And then let color become your anchor. This isn't about fashion. It's about presence. Wearing blue because you crave calm, or soft neutrals because you need space, or even a vibrant scarf because your heart needs a little joy today. Even if no one else notices, you will. And that noticing, it shifts your posture, your breath, your mindset. It says, today, I'm not just surviving, I'm choosing how I show up. Habit 4. Simplify your mornings. Let me ask you this. How many tiny decisions do you make in the first hour of your day? What to wear? What to eat? Should I check my phone now? What's urgent? What's not? All of these micro choices drain your mental energy. It's called decision fatigue, and it hits before breakfast. The more decisions your brain has to make early in the day, the less clarity and emotional regulation you have later on. So here's the practice. Reduce your early morning decisions. Pick your clothes the night before. Eat the same nourishing breakfast for a week. Write down your top 3 priorities before bed. Keep your phone off until you've connected with yourself. You're not being rigid. You're creating mental space. Because when your morning is simple, your body gets the message, we're in control. We're grounded. We know what matters. And that feeling is dopamine. Sustainable dopamine. The kind that helps you feel steady, not scattered. Remember, simplicity is a kindness. It's not about doing less. It's about doing what matters, without all the friction. Habit 5. Use your non-dominant hand. This one's a bit quirky, but stay with me. Try brushing your teeth, stirring your drink, or opening a door with your non-dominant hand. It'll feel awkward, clumsy, a little frustrating. And that's exactly the point. Because in that moment, your brain stops drifting. It wakes up. It says, wait, this is different. You're no longer on autopilot. You're here, fully engaged with something as simple as holding a spoon. What's happening neurologically? You're forming new neural connections. You're increasing brain plasticity. You're activating awareness. And emotionally, you're practicing humility, patience, presence. It's a way of saying, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be present. And sometimes, the gentlest way to reconnect with yourself is to do something slightly uncomfortable. Slowly, with full attention. Let's recap. Sit somewhere new. Change the angle. Wear a color that reflects how you want to feel. Make your mornings simple and intentional. Use your other hand and wake your brain up. Each of these things may seem insignificant, but they're not. They're interruptions to the default. They're doorways back to the moment. They're reminders that you are not stuck. You are still able to shift, to move, to begin again. So ask yourself, where am I moving through life without noticing? Where can I break the pattern, not with effort, but with a small intentional change? Because your healing doesn't have to come from big, dramatic breakthroughs. Sometimes it begins with the way you open a door, with the color of your shirt, with the chair you never sit in. Sometimes the path back to yourself is right where you are. You just have to meet it. There's something powerful about turning inward, not to analyze, not to fix, but simply to notice, to witness your own experience without judgment. That's what this part of the journey is about. Not becoming better, not becoming different, but becoming honest. So if you've been feeling disconnected, overwhelmed, or numb, if you're tired of trying to figure it all out, maybe it's time to stop pushing and start listening. These 5 simple habits are quiet invitations, not to change who you are, but to remember who you've always been. Let's begin. Habit 6. Speak to yourself out loud for 1 minute. When was the last time you actually heard your own voice? Not in a meeting, not explaining something, but speaking to yourself? Just for 1 minute, say something out loud. Anything real. I'm tired today. I'm trying even if I don't know what I need. I'm overwhelmed, but I'm still here. This isn't about positive affirmations or pretending you're fine. It's about giving your thoughts a voice, literally. Because when you speak your truth, even softly, even imperfectly, something shifts. Your nervous system listens. Your mind slows down. You create space between yourself and your emotion. And in that space, clarity begins. Habit 7. Do one mundane task with full attention. We tend to rush through small tasks like they don't matter. Washing dishes, folding laundry, cutting fruit. But what if these moments weren't interruptions? What if they were invitations? Today, choose just one small task and give it your full attention. Feel the water as you wash the plate. Notice the fabric as you fold the shirt. Breathe as you slice the apple. You don't need to slow down your whole life. Just this moment. Because presence doesn't always need a meditation cushion. Sometimes it lives in how you hold a cup. Neuroscience shows us that focused attention in simple movements can calm the nervous system, lower anxiety, and regulate emotion. You're not escaping, you're arriving, fully, gently, completely. Habit 8. Read one line from a book you love. You don't need a new podcast or a full chapter of self-help. You just need one line, one truth, one sentence that stays with you. Maybe it's something like, you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. The wound is the place where the light enters you. This too shall pass. Don't read it quickly. Let it echo. Let it challenge you, comfort you, follow you through the day like a soft companion. Our brains don't thrive on endless information. They thrive on meaning. And sometimes one sentence, deeply felt, can realign your whole day, not because it adds something, but because it reminds you of what matters. Habit 9. Sit somewhere you've never sat before. We often think change requires a new job, a new city, a new version of ourselves. But what if all you needed was a new seat? Every space in your home carries an emotional memory. The corner where you cry, the chair where you scroll, the kitchen stool where you rush. But what about the spot you've never noticed? Maybe it's a patch of floor by the window, a step at your front door, a shadowy corner in your room. Go there. Not to do anything, just to be. Let your eyes land on something new. Let your body feel the difference. Let the change in posture soften your thoughts. This isn't about rearranging your life. It's about disrupting emotional autopilot. Because when you sit differently, you think differently. You breathe differently. You give yourself permission to experience the moment in a new light. Habit 10. End your day with a whispered gratitude. We end most days exhausted, tired from noise, tasks, thoughts left unfinished. But what if you didn't let the day end in tension? What if, just before sleep, you whispered one thing you were grateful for? Not to write it, not to post it, just to say it. For you. I'm grateful I didn't give up today. I'm grateful for that small moment of laughter. I'm grateful for the quiet. Gratitude doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be real. When spoken aloud, especially in the final moments before sleep, it helps your nervous system relax. It tells your mind, the day is over, and something beautiful still happened. This doesn't erase the pain, but it balances it, and sometimes that balance is enough to rest in. Let's pause here. You don't need to do all of this at once. You don't even need to do it perfectly. Maybe today you start with one thing, speaking honestly to yourself for a minute, giving your full attention to cutting a piece of fruit, whispering thank you into the dark. Small gestures, small resets, big healing, because real emotional strength isn't about control. It's about connection, to your breath, to your space, to your truth. So ask yourself now, where have I been performing instead of feeling? What's one way I can reconnect with myself? Gently. You don't have to wait until you fall apart. You don't have to be perfect before you begin. Just begin, because sometimes the most powerful form of self-care is presence. Let's take a deep breath together and exhale. You made it to the end of this journey, but really this isn't an end at all, it's a beginning. A soft, quiet beginning to something deeply important. Coming home to yourself. You see, healing doesn't always announce itself. It doesn't always come in breakthroughs or bold decisions. Sometimes it slips in, through the smallest of doors. A new way of noticing, a gentler pace, a moment of truth spoken in your own voice. We often think we need to change our whole lives to feel better. But here's what I want to remind you of today. You don't need to change your life. You just need to change the way you live your moments. That's it. Not everything. Just something. Just one thing, one moment, one breath. Every habit we explored together in this video is small by design. But small doesn't mean insignificant. Each one is a message. A whisper. You are safe now. You are enough. You can stop bracing. And in a world that constantly tells you to go faster, do more, be better, these tiny moments are acts of quiet resistance, a reclaiming, because emotional stability doesn't grow from pressure or perfection. It grows from presence, from rhythm, from gentle consistency. That's the power of the mundane. A color you wear with intention. A sentence spoken aloud before sleep. The way you sit in a new corner of your home. The breath you take before picking up your phone. None of this is about fixing yourself. You're not broken. You never were. This is about remembering that peace doesn't need to be earned. It can be practiced, lived, welcomed. These habits, these tiny rituals, aren't productivity hacks. They're invitations. Invitations to slow down, to look within, to choose awareness over autopilot, to live your day from the inside out. So if even one thing from this list made you breathe a little deeper, feel a little more like yourself again, start there. You don't have to do all 10. You don't need to perfect any of them. Just begin. Choose the one that speaks to you. Let it anchor you. Let it grow. And if you know someone else who's overwhelmed, someone whose inner world feels too loud right now, share this with them. Not as advice, but as a gesture. A quiet hand on the shoulder that says, "Hey, you're not alone, and you don't have to carry this all at once." Because sometimes the most healing thing we can offer each other is a reminder that we're already enough, especially in the moments we feel furthest from it. Thank you for spending this time with me. And wherever you are, I hope you leave this video not with a checklist, but with a softer heart, a steadier breath, and a little more room inside to be exactly who you are.